Welcome back to our news bulletin. The daily COVID-19 death toll in Brazil has soared to a new high with 1,473 fatalities, taking the tally to over 34,000. Mexico has reported 816 deaths in the past 24 hours, increasing the toll to more than 12,000. Meanwhile, in the US, 1,021 more people have died, taking the toll to over 108,000. Worldwide, the death count has crossed 391,000 with more than 6.6 million infected. Further details in this report.
America is the COVID-19 epicenter, with Brazil having the third highest number of deaths in the world. The death count in Mexico too has surged to an all-time high. Meanwhile, in the US, mass congregations and anti-racism demonstrations risk an accelerated spread of COVID-19. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has urged the protesters to immediately get themselves tested.
With the protesters, they could actually compound the situation. Why? You have 30,000 people who've been protesting statewide. You look at the video as well as I look at the video. Many of them wear masks, thank God. But there's no social distancing. We're going to open the testing facilities for all people who are at a protest.
Meanwhile, in Europe, Turkey is set to impose a weekend curfew in 15 cities to curb the spread of the virus. The UK has made face masks compulsory for passengers on buses, trains, aircraft, and ferries from June 15th.
As of Monday, the 15th of June, face coverings will become mandatory on public transport. That doesn't mean surgical masks, which we must keep for clinical settings. It means the kind of face covering you can easily make at home. There'll be exemptions to these rules for very young children, for disabled people, and those with breathing difficulties.
Meanwhile, in Asia, Iran is witnessing a second coronavirus wave, with its highly daily jump of 3,574 cases since the beginning of the outbreak. India has reported a record spike in new infections with 9,851 cases in the last 24 hours. China has reported 5 new cases, all foreigners, while no new deaths from the virus.
Pakistan has recorded its highest single-day surge in COVID-19 cases, with 4,896 testing positive over the past 24 hours. The Ministry of Health says 68 people died of the virus in the last 24 hours, bringing the death toll to 1,838. The ministry said 31,198 patients of coronavirus have recovered so far, while there are 56,213 active patients in the country to date. It said 33,536 cases have been reported in the province of Sindh, 33,144 in Punjab, 11,890 in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and 5,582 in Balochistan. In the capital city of Islamabad, 3,946 cases were recorded, while AJK and Gilgit-Baltistan have reported 1,151 cases. The Senate of Pakistan has unanimously passed a resolution to condemn atrocities and human rights violations in Indian-occupied Kashmir. The upper house of parliament also censured illegal Indian incursions into the Chinese territory. Backed by all political parties, the resolution was tabled by leader of the opposition in the upper house, Senator Raja Zafarul Haq. The resolution condemned extrajudicial killings of unarmed Kashmiri youth in fake encounters. The upper house demanded immediate action from the United Nations Secretary General. In the resolution, the Senate of Pakistan extended fullest support to the cause of a fair plebiscite in the occupied valley. In another news, Libya's government of national accord claims it has liberated the strategic southeastern city of Tarhuna from Khalifa Haftar's forces. In an interview, the spokesperson of GNA's Operation Volcano Ridge, Mustafa Al-Muji, said the forces faced little resistance from Haftar's troops. Tarhuna is the last major stronghold of Eastern Commander Haftar near Tripoli. Al-Muji said the GNA forces moved to the center of Tarhuna after taking control over the Al-Daun area. The Libyan army said its next target is Sirte, Al-Jufra and oil fields in the south. Yesterday, the UN-recognized GNA announced total capture and control of the capital, Tripoli. Now, Syria says Israeli jets have targeted multiple military posts in northwestern Hama province. State media said the warplanes attacked from Lebanese airspace and caused only material damage but no casualties. It says Syrian air defenses shot down a number of missiles. Earlier, state media reported Syrian army thwarted an unidentified missile attack in the outskirts of Mizyaf city. Israel has stepped up its strikes on suspected Iranian targets inside Syria in the last 2 months. Iraq's parliament says Baghdad will reject any U.S. proposal to prolong its military presence in the country during negotiations. In an interview, lawmaker Karim al-Mohammadawi said the talks will fail to produce tangible results if withdrawal is not discussed. Al-Mohammadawi said the Iraqi government must heed the parliament's earlier decision on withdrawal of foreign forces, especially American troops. The lawmaker said the U.S. wants to stay in the country in order to exert pressure on Iraq. Relations between Iraq and the U.S. have been strained following the killing of top Iranian General Qasem Soleimani near Baghdad. The killing led to the Iraqi parliament voting in a bill which will see a total withdrawal of U.S. troops from the country. Iran has released U.S. Navy veteran Michael White after more than a year in custody. President Donald Trump hailed White's release in a tweet and said he expects him to be with his family in the U.S. soon. White was arrested in 2018 and sentenced the following year on charges that he posted anti-Iran remarks on social media. This comes days after the U.S. deported a detained Iranian scientist. Sirius Asghari had been charged in 2016 with trying to trade secret research from an American university. The twin releases are a rare example of cooperation between Tehran and Washington. Turkey says it has killed 4 militants of the Kurdistan Workers' Party in airstrikes during a counter-terrorist operation in northern Iraq. The Defense Ministry said military operations backed by air power were carried out in Haftanin, Avashin and Zap regions. The ministry said Turkey will continue to destroy weapon caches and shelters used by the terrorists. It said over 400 Kurdish militants have been killed in northern Iraq over the past 5 months. State media said PKK militants often use northern Iraq to plan cross-border terrorist attacks in Turkey. Turkey holds the PKK responsible for the deaths of some 40,000 people in a 30-year terror campaign. Thousands have taken to the streets across the U.S. for the 10th straight day in protest over the killing of George Floyd. Largely peaceful demonstrations against police brutality and systemic racism continue as some cities relaxed curfews. Seattle and Los Angeles have cancelled nightly curfews, while in the capital, Washington, D.C., the curfew duration has been reduced. This comes after a Minneapolis court charged 3 police officers of aiding and abetting second-degree murder and manslaughter of George Floyd. Judge Paul Scoggins set bail of $1 million and the accused next court appearance for June 29th. If convicted, the accused face up to 40 years in prison. Meanwhile, the U.S. Senate hit an impasse over a bill to designate lynching as a federal hate crime. Russia says the U.S. has failed to address its systematic human rights violations, racial, ethnic, and religious discrimination, and police impunity. In a virtual meeting of OSCE, Envoy Alexander Lukashenko said excessive use of force by U.S. police is a violation of constitutional rights. Lukashenko said it is widely known that African Americans suffer most from the violence of U.S. law enforcement agents. He said the official statistic of violations committed by agents on duty is deliberately not registered on a nationwide scale. The Russian envoy claimed U.S. police officers killed 992 people in 2018 and over 1,000 in 2019 and killed around 400 people in the first 5 months of 2020. The Organization of Security and Cooperation in Europe has also expressed concerns about inequality and racism in the U.S. and the need to uproot it. Chancellor Angela Merkel has urged citizens not to overlook the racism problem in Germany while discussing prejudice and police brutality in the US. In an interview, Merkel said the murder of George Floyd was terrible. Chancellor said racism has always been present in Germany. She said Germany should first sweep in front of its own door before raising a voice against the brutality in the US. Merkel expressed hope for a reconciliation in the US.
I wish for the US that precisely this does not happen. I wish for the country to find reconciliation. This murder of George Floyd is terrible. It is racist, and we know ourselves that we know something of racism here and have our own battle to fight against it here too. I would like to say that clearly. But I trust in the power of democracy in the US that they are able to come through this difficult situation.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo says he has discussed regional developments with Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. In a tweet, Pompeo said he discussed the support of UN efforts towards a lasting ceasefire in Libya with the Crown Prince. Pompeo hailed Washington's strong partnership with Abu Dhabi in the fight against COVID-19 pandemic. On Monday, the United Nations said both sides in the Libyan conflict had agreed to resume ceasefire talks. The international body warned that weapons and fighters being flown into Libya threatened a new escalation. The U.S. has once again urged South Korea to show flexibility and find common ground over the cost of U.S. troops under the Special Measures Agreement. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Korea and Japan, Mark Napper, said he believes Washington has been very flexible and urged Seoul to follow suit. Napper said the SMA's renewal is needed to ensure the alliance's capability to defend against possible North Korean aggression. Earlier this week, an agreement allowed South Korea to fund the labor costs for all Koreans working at U.S. bases. Napper said last week's agreement addressed the human cost of failing to renew the SMA. Talks over a new treaty have been stalled after Seoul rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's proposed amount of $1.3 billion per year. We're now taking a short break, but stay tuned for more news. Welcome back. Lawmakers in Hong Kong have approved a bill making it a crime to insult China's national anthem. The bill was approved with 41 in favor and 1 against it. The new law carries penalties of steep fines and up to 3 years in prison for anyone who disrespects the anthem. It also requires school children in the territory to be taught the anthem and its history. The move came as people in Hong Kong were set to light candles to commemorate the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest. Police banned an anniversary vigil citing coronavirus measures, but thousands defied the ban to gather in Victoria Park, where they held a minute of silence. China says it opposes the UK's interference in the legislation to safeguard national security in Hong Kong. This comes after British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said Beijing's actions in Hong Kong are putting Sino-UK agreement at risk. In a press briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhao Lijian said the UK must step back or China will take corresponding measures. He added a stable relationship between London and Beijing serves the common interests of both sides. He said political manipulation on the visa issue and cross-collusion in an attempt to interfere in China's internal affairs are both dead ends. Earlier, Johnson said he would offer British citizenship to Hong Kong's residents if Beijing goes ahead with security laws. The World Health Organization says it is very concerned about a new Ebola outbreak, which has claimed 5 lives in the Democratic Republic of Congo. In a media briefing, WHO Regional Director for Africa, Dr. Matshidiso Moeti, said the flare-up is a challenge, but the health body is ready to tackle it. Dr. Moeti said the WHO is working with the National Institute to do gene sequencing and see if it is the same outbreak as that from North Kivu. The DRC has confirmed a new outbreak of Ebola virus disease in Mabandaka in the western Equateur province. The country has lost more than 2,200 lives since the outbreak began in August 2018. The Global Vaccine Summit hosted by the UK has raised $8.8 billion for routine vaccinations in some of the poorest countries. Representatives of more than 50 countries, including 35 heads of state, participated to raise funds for the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. Gavi has operated for more than 20 years and develops and distributes vaccines in poor countries. In his opening speech, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he hoped the summit will be a moment when the world comes together.
Vaccines work. People who are vaccinated protect themselves and the rest of the population by lowering the spread and risk of infection. Gavi's work on routine immunization is the strongest shield against outbreaks of infectious diseases.
Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis has introduced a new campaign called Restart Tourism for the 2020 season. This comes as the country lifts the coronavirus-related lockdowns after months. Mitsotakis said tourists coming to Greece will have to observe the basic hygiene protocols invariably. On June 15th, flights to Athens and Saloniki airports will resume for countries with a good epidemiological profile, while as of July 1st, flights to all Greek airports and from all countries will restart. The United Nations Security Council has extended the mandate of the African Union hybrid operation in Darfur by 2 months. Resolution 2525 extended the mission's mandate until the end of 2020, while maintaining the current troop and police ceiling during this period. The Security Council also requested the UN and the African Union Commission for a special report to plan the mission's exit. In a separate resolution, the Council decided to establish a UN integrated transition assistance mission in Sudan for an initial period of 12 months. The resolution 2524 said Sudan mission will help the country with its current political transition. The mission will provide technical assistance to the constitution drafting process, the population census, and preparations for elections. In Cameroon, journalist Samuel Vazizi, arrested in August for criticizing the government's handling of a separatist revolt, has died in custody. In a statement, rights group Reporters Without Borders called for a thorough and independent probe into the incident. Vazizi worked for a local broadcaster in one of the areas where separatists launched an armed campaign in 2017. The watchdog said Vazizi was accused of speaking critically on the air about the authorities and their handling of the crisis. RSF said Vazizi's death in detention while being held incommunicado is the worst crime against a journalist in the past 10 years in Cameroon. It called on authorities to end the silence around this case and return his body to the family. The world is celebrating the annual Environment Day today with the theme Time for Nature. This year's theme focuses on nature's role in providing infrastructure to support life on Earth and its contributions in human development. Pakistan's Minister of State for Climate Change, Sartaj Gul Wazir, said governments and the public need to play their part to protect world's biodiversity. This year, Colombia, in partnership with Germany, is set to host the official celebrations to raise awareness for environmental protection. The usual activity of planting saplings may not be held as the world battles to control the novel coronavirus pandemic. The global campaign was first held in 1974 with the theme of Only One Earth during the first day of the United Nations Conference on Human Environment. European markets are trading higher as investors digest an expansion of the European Central Bank's bond buying program. They were awaiting a US non-farm payrolls report due later in the day. Britain's FTSE 100 has gained more than 1%, while Germany's DAX and France's CAC 40 have both jumped 2%. Stocks in Asia Pacific were mostly higher, led by a more than 1% gain for South Korea's Kospi. In Japan, the Nikkei 225 rose nearly 0.5%, but mainland Chinese stocks were trading lower. The Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Component dipped a little over 0.25%. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.